This episode of the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. If you're a window installer, you deserve a simple choice: Andersen 400 Series windows. They're the windows contractors trust the most, based on a 2022 survey of U.S. contractors. Probably because they have fewer callbacks and extra peace of mind. And thanks to shortened lead times, they're available faster. Make your go-to windows Andersen 400 Series. Request a quote at andersenwindows.com.
There are more pathways into this industry than just coming up in a family business or having been a carpenter, that there are other ways to make yourself a qualified building professional, and being open to those pathways into the industry definitely, I think, increases that diversity.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. Today I'm joined by Morgan Thomas, production manager for Leff Design Build in Sebastopol, California. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Morgan, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Can you please tell me about Leff Design Build?
Sure. Yeah, we are a mid-sized company based out of Sonoma County, California. So we get to enjoy the beauties of wine country. We do a blend of whole home remodeling and new custom homes.
And what is your company's sweet spot for projects? What are the budgets, and are they? I'm guessing mostly is residential. Is that correct?
Yes, we do almost exclusively residential. We've dabbled in the idea of a little bit of hospitality work because we are in the wine country. We've discussed some tasting room projects, but definitely would need to be a particular client with design focus. So yes, mostly residential.
Can I guess that these projects are pretty expensive given where you are in the country?
Yeah, they tend to be in the higher dollar value. A lot of them north of $1 million for a remodel, and north of $2 million for a new custom home.
And how many folks are in the firm, and what are their roles, and what is your role there? First off, specifically.
So total, we have 33 right now, which is a blend between the design half of the business, which we have architects and interior designers that are responsible for creating all of the construction documents and all of the selections with our clients. And then the build portion, which I'm responsible for. And we have currently 4 project managers and 15 carpenters. So we self-perform all of the carpentry work and then work with trade partners for everything else. So I oversee the build half of the business. Pretty much, I get involved during the pre-construction phases too, just to make sure that all of the contracts and all the scopes of work are correct. And then help my team successfully implement and execute on the build side.
On the job site, you mentioned you have project managers. Are they there every day monitoring the construction process? Do you have one per job, or do they move around? How's that work?
So the project managers each manage anywhere from 2 to 4 projects, depending on the size. They split their time between the office and the field. They're responsible for, high level schedule management, and then the budget management and the client communication portion of the project. And then we have lead carpenters in the field that are managing the day-to-day of the, trades coming in and out and the self-performed labor. So it's a partnership between a lead carpenter and a project manager.
And the project managers, I'm guessing you get with them probably on a regular basis to talk about the how projects are going and what's coming up. And what do you discuss at those meetings, and how often do you have them?
So we have weekly same page meetings with every person who touches that project. They're usually only about a half hour. Sometimes they sneak into 45 minutes if the project needs a lot of attention. And that involves both the architect and the interior designer. If there's design questions, the on-site lead carpenter, and then the project manager and myself. So we have weekly check-ins just to touch base, make sure that any in-field questions are being, addressed, and that we keep everything moving on schedule and on budget.
That model I find interesting. So the one I'm more familiar with is your lead carpenter or your project manager out in the site, and they have some kind of problem or some decision that needs to be made. they call you, I'm presuming, as the next level in the chain of command. Do these meetings somewhat reduce the need for those kind of phone calls? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So it helps with, we really believe that our products are the highest quality when the design portion of the process and the build portion of the process really work in this beautiful symbiotic relationship. And so design is already at big milestone points planning to come out and walk the projects at rough framing and at, electrical and all of these different milestone points to make sure that we've captured all of the design intent, all of the discussions that we're having with the client on the front side, and that we're executing it per plan. So design is very accustomed to having to come out and put on their work boots and get out there and see the work in process. And so it's really great that we have those resources. We don't have to go out of house for RFIs or any kind of information that takes a long time to get, because they're right here in the same building. So we're able to have really great access with our design team.
I spent some time looking at the project portfolio on your company's website, and they look like, as you might imagine, big, complicated residential products. What are some of the challenges your company faces building the sophisticated projects that you do? I'm guessing you have trouble finding help like everybody.
Yeah, skilled labor is a big challenge. I think that's universal across the board for everybody. Uniquely in our area, we are prone to wildfire, so we're always having discussions about fire hardening, using the appropriate fire hardening materials, building spaces that have defensible space so that hopefully, if it does happen, that the structure makes it
Survive. Yeah.
Yeah, and also we do a lot of fire rebuilds, which is like this whole different, emotional component to the build process with our clients, because they've lost their properties, and so reimagining a property after going through a trauma like that has its own challenges. So it's definitely unique to our area. I think not everybody is dealing with fire in such a ongoing and visible kind of portion of the design and building process as we do here.
Interesting. I'm guessing that insurance companies are paying the bills in those kind of project rebuilds. I bet that's complicating too, especially with cost escalations we've had over the last few years.
Yeah, it is an extra layer of complication. Our clients usually have their own funds that they can dip into as well, because unfortunately what we found is a lot of people, especially in the early rounds of wildfire hitting the areas where people actually had houses, they were really underinsured. And so a lot of people have now had to increase their insurance coverages as a learning lesson from that first couple of rounds of
Sure.
wildfire. But yeah, there was a lot of supplementation of funds from our clients in order to get the homes that they really, really wanted. So
I know parts of California have roving blackouts owing to trying to keep fires from starting. Um, what do you do when the power's shut off and you're trying to build houses?
we work from generators a lot. It's actually also a big conversation with our clients, building energy independence. So when we're doing new custom homes, that's always a portion of the conversation when we're going through the design development and the build process.
You mean standby
Because
generators, I'm guessing, is what you're talking
yeah,
about.
whole
Yeah.
home generators or solar systems with battery banks to back up the entire structure, or at least a critical load panel. So your wine refrigerator and your kitchen refrigerator and your few things that are really important to you stay online when the power doesn't inevitably get shut off, because it does happen on a fairly frequent basis here. So we are talking about energy independence with our clients on a
And
regular
how long will
basis.
the power go out, Morgan? Is it days, hours? What?
It depends. It can be days, and it has been days in the past. If there's an immediate threat and people are being evacuated from certain areas, they usually just go ahead and shut the power off in those areas. So it has been days in recent years where the power is shut off.
That sounds really unfun. And yeah, we'll talk more about the
It's
complexity of living in California here as we go along. I recently learned that in California, contractors can only take ludicrously small deposits. It's a maximum of $1,000. Am I right?
yeah.
How do you run a business that way? Cash flow must be a potentially huge problem.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be a problem, especially for some of the smaller contractors. We bill our clients weekly. So we are increasing the frequency in which we bill so that we don't
They're
ever
not
have
getting too
to.
far ahead, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, do you know of other strategies contractors use to deal with $1,000 deposit on you mentioned $1 million project? That seems crazy to me.
I know some contractors have clients purchase like large ticket item materials outside of their contract. Like they'll have the clients purchase their door and window packages directly or their appliance suites directly so that they're not having to come out of pocket and fund those while they wait for a 30-day turnaround on being able to bill for that. So some people go that route.
Do you think it's fair, the legislation that requires you to, take so little money or allows you to take so little money?
It's kind of it's a double-edged sword. We, especially in the wake of all of the fire rebuilds, there was just a huge explosion of building in our area. And there were a lot of contractors that came from outside the area and really took advantage of the situation and then left people in really dire situations. So I understand the legislation to protect the consumer. I really do. And I think that it speaks to why you would work with a reputable builder who has, a track record for, lots of
And
years
a
in the
line of credit,
industry.
right?
Exactly. And a
Yeah.
large line of credit, because it is the best way to go, because there are people out there that really take advantage of the homeowner. So I get that it's kind of a frustration from the builder's perspective, and it can be an obstacle, but there are ways around it. And homeowners are pretty good about paying their bills when they're billed really regularly. So it's worked out for us.
I suspect there's a great deal of stress with your job. Do you wake up in the middle of the night worrying about stuff that you should have done the day before or did and still are worried about it?
Oh yeah, all the time. I think it's just the nature of this business. Like there's so many different moving parts and pieces, and it's easy to get distracted putting out an immediate fire in front of you and then forget the 14 things on the to-do list that you were supposed to get done that day. So yeah, it wakes me up all the time. I found that there's a delayed send feature in my email, so I can, in the middle of the night, type the email, but not look like a crazy person, because I can delay the send time to like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. when it's an appropriate time to
That
send.
doesn't help you get any sleep, but
But then I know it's done, so I can fall back to sleep.
I suspect that some of the people you're working with, speaking of challenges to your job, can be difficult. Any tips for dealing with problem clients?
Well, we really believe that communication solves all of those customer service problems. If there aren't any confusions about what the budget is, what the timeline is, if there's a lot of clarity around those things, you're communicating with the right decision maker, and you're doing what you say you're going to do, following through, even if it is with a 3 a.m. email, and solving their pain, like really actually giving them a product that's helping solve something for them that was a pain for them, then we find that it usually solves most of those customer service issues. Not that we don't have those occasional challenging ones, because there is a high level of expectation, but it's also a high level of expectation we put on ourselves. So it's easy for us to feel responsible for the product and making sure that we're really giving the client a really high custom experience and product in the end. So we find ways around it, but definitely communication seems to solve most of those issues.
Are there any things that you can do as a contractor to manage client expectations at the very beginning of the process so they don't create problems
Oh,
for you later on?
100%. We're really the client education portion, and thankfully, like the design portion being under the same roof really gives us a lot of opportunities to do a lot of client education up front. We really create this environment where our clients value us as their trusted advisor, and that we're all on the same team to achieve the end goal of getting them a beautiful home, and giving them the opportunity to understand the installations, understand the materials, understand why we're guiding them in a specific direction, build on that trust and that foundation of, okay, we're not going to lead you down a path that isn't the right decision for you. And so we really get to capitalize on that opportunity because we build those relationships during the design phase and get to really do a lot of education about this is how this is going to go. This is how long it's going to take. There are going to be unforeseens, unknowns that we're going to come across. But by the time we get to that point where we're opening up the walls and discovering all those unknowns, unforeseens, we've already established that relationship as their trusted advisor. And so the clients really rely on us at that point to give them the most straightforward professional advice of, this is what we would do. This is what we're advising that you do in this situation. So we benefit from that early relationship with the clients.
Is there any clients you've ever had to say, you know what, we're not the right fit for you. We're not going to be able to work together. You just do that at the very get-go or soon after, I'm guessing?
We try to do it as soon as we can, as soon as we've identified that they either just aren't a good fit for our process, that we can't solve some sort of pain for them, that they would be better served by another builder. We're definitely not the most economical approach. And so sometimes it's a budget, restriction. And sometimes it's just what they're looking for. They don't value the service that we're bringing. They're not interested in that design build experience that we're really good at providing for our clients. And if we feel like that's not going to serve them well, then we do try to lead them to a no as early as we possibly can in the process.
So how were you introduced to construction? Did you have friends or family in the trades growing up who exposed you to it? No.
No, I kind of fell into it. I was bartending I was in graduate school and trying to just figure out my next steps, and had a regular who was a contractor and really wanted me to come and give it a shot working for him. And he really mentored me and gave me a lot of good experience, and I fell in love with the industry and couldn't see myself doing anything else and stayed. So it was kind of by happenstance, but I'm grateful for it because I love it. So it worked out.
You have a degree in journalism, am I correct, from Gonzaga?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, journalism was, I thought I was going to be a writer. I don't know. So that seemed like an obvious choice for me as an 18-year-old. And I've learned a lot of really great skills as a journalism major. Obviously communication and being able to, write and speak and, get ideas across.
And fearlessness, right? You can't be scared of anything. You have to be willing to bang on someone's door and talk to them, right?
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of boldness, being willing to ask all of the questions. The research component of journalism, I think, has served me the best in my role now. Is there's always new, technologies and science and materials. And so being able to really do the research about different things has really been able to, it's served me well in my construction life, even though it's not directly applicable. I do feel like I do use those skills that I learned in school for sure.
I'm sure you did. I think you'd agree the construction industry is not traditionally welcoming to women. Have you had occasions where people question your skill and abilities? How did you deal with that?
Inherently, I think it's just a part of this business still, unfortunately. I think it's definitely gotten better. I benefit from all of the women who've worked their way up in this industry before me. And it's definitely a more inclusive environment than it was even when I started 10 years ago. But I think I overcompensate. I think a lot of us do by making sure that we have done the research and know the answers and feel really confident in the information that we're presenting. I think that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of women in this industry. But, I think that the more that there's some visibility of more women participating in the industry, the more accessible it seems. And I have a project manager who went to school for construction management, and she doesn't have any family in the business. And she just decided this was an industry that interested her and pursued that. And so it's becoming much more of a possibility for women. And I think we're going to see a lot more participating in it as time, progresses. And home building, especially, the concept of home is such a universal, human experience, and women interface with those spaces in such a unique way. And so having that perspective represented in the build process only is going to make those spaces better, only is going to make those spaces more efficient and more effective for the user, for the people who live there. And so I think that diversity of of perspective is only going to improve the industry as we start to see more of it.
And how should folks make the industry more inclusive? What can we do?
I would say definitely finding ways to lower the barriers. Understanding that there are more pathways into this industry than just coming up in a family business or having been a carpenter, that there are other ways to make yourself a qualified building professional, and being open to those pathways into the industry definitely, I think, increases that diversity and environment in the industry. But also just simple things like vocabulary was my biggest barrier when I first started in the industry. There's so many industry specific words, acronyms, terms that I found really difficult. And so having a mentor who would let me just ask him, what is this? And what does this mean? And understanding the language really was the biggest obstacle for me when I first came into the industry. So
can I ask a follow-up question with that?
Yeah.
Was it just that you felt like folks aren't gonna you didn't understand, or folks aren't gonna trust you because you didn't know the nomenclature?
I think probably both. There were conversations where I was taking notes and I would get lost in the vocabulary because I wasn't entirely sure exactly what they were talking about. And so I was like Googling on the side or writing it down so I could look it up later when I was in front of my computer. But also being afraid of using the wrong terms, not being able to express what I was concerned about or an issue I was foreseeing because I wasn't using the right vocabulary. And even from contractor to contractor, they might use a different term for the same thing. And so navigating that was really challenging. So I was grateful for having a mentor who was willing to, no judgment, just ask the questions and I'll explain it to you. And so I really try and make a point for my younger, newer staff to be like, okay, take the time to slow down. Ask me the question. I will always explain it to you. Or maybe I don't know the answer and we'll find the answer together. So I think that's
that's very profound, because folks like myself have come up in the industry. I don't think you realize how important the language is to judging someone's chops or guessing their aptitude toward it. And it's unfair if you think about it, because the concern might be real, whether you know the word to describe what the concern is or the building element. It shouldn't matter, right?
Right.
So I've been talking to a lot of folks with COVID going on, right? What's been the biggest challenges with your business since the pandemic hit?
Well, I think everybody is experiencing the material shortages in a big way. We've had, difficulty getting appliances and all sorts of different things. So that's been a challenge. We've had to overcome windows, doors, insane lead times on materials has been tricky to navigate. Also, permitting really slowed down here in California. We have a pretty robust permitting process. And in order for them to keep up with that, and a lot of the municipalities sent everybody home. And so everybody was working like these hybrid schedules. And so turning around a permit that we used to be able to get in a few weeks was taking 8, 10, 12 weeks. And so it's become an obstacle. We've had to go sit down with the building official and really try to figure out ways to speed that up again.
Is it getting better again, or is it still the same? Yeah, no.
It's hit or miss because where we're situated, we're an hour north of San Francisco. And so what we saw was all of those people who now have 100% or 80% remote work jobs that were in San Francisco or Silicon Valley are buying beautiful wine country properties because they can
work from anywhere now.
Yeah. Exactly. And so at the same time that everybody in the building department was going home, we were getting this influx of people who were buying properties and ready to renovate. And so it was kind of this twofold problem where we had a massive demand and the response times were slowing down. So we're still trying to fight our way out of that backlog, but hopefully it will slowly start to get better.
You just sighed. What are some of the other problems?
As far as materials delays
Or
go.
just what COVID taught us about home building and just how busy it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think we've all learned some flexibility in this time of pandemic. I mean, everybody has gotten those notifications from me of you were exposed, you need to stay home, we need to get tested, going through all of the protocols. And it's a constantly moving target of what those protocols are. And so I think everybody has really learned this new sense of okay, maybe we can be a little bit more flexible than we have been in the past with some of our timelines and deadlines because there is this just unknown factor that we have to be ready to pivot when it comes up because inevitably it keeps coming up. So
Yeah.
we've been trying to be more flexible and our clients have been really gracious and understanding too, which I think has helped. I mean, they all understand how challenging the material shortages are and all of the different, COVID shutdowns and, exposures and those things. And so it's helped that the clients are also keenly aware of the obstacles. And so they definitely seem to be a lot more forgiving when it comes time to shut their project down for a week while we, do contact tracing.
Jeez. So, how about material costs? Have they been as accepting of escalations in their project budgets?
Well, we're on fixed price contracts with all of our clients. And
So, how do
so
you deal with that? I mean, you must have escalation clauses, right?
we do, but we try not to utilize them unless it's something that's really, really egregiously over what we had included in the estimate. We've been ordering materials basically as soon as they sign their contract. We just start ordering, and we've been storing and figuring out. And so we've been building storage costs into the contracts too a little bit, or coming up with storage plans for on-site storage so that we can just order those doors and windows, order everything, order the lumber package, and just get it there. Then we don't risk it getting back ordered. We don't risk, the prices going up. So we're trying to order as much as we can right on day one and just finding a way to store it because it seems to be the most effective way
It's
for us
more
to
reliable
manage.
anyway, right? Yeah.
Right.
I'm guessing you've had folks who have backed out of projects because budgets have gone up, but maybe that doesn't affect your clients as much as other folks.
I mean, we are fortunate to have a client base that is able to do stuff when things are still getting a little bit more expensive. But we have had clients that have backed out, especially lately with the stock market kind of
Yeah.
taking its turn. Some clients are not feeling quite as comfortable, and so they have said, "Let's put a hold on it, or let's pull the permit, and then we'll wait and see what the environment's like in a year." And so we've been doing that as well a little bit.
So this is my favorite part of the show. Can you tell me about your own house, Morgan? Anything you'd like to confess to needing repair that you're either willingly or unwillingly overlooking?
Oh man, I would say everything. No, we purchased our house, gosh, 3 years ago now. So and when we bought it, it was a total gut fixer upper. So we just incrementally we pick a project here or there. This year is definitely new roof, new windows because it's time.
Do you do any of the work yourself, or are you willing to let other folks do that?
We will. We do a lot of the work ourselves. I'll tag a couple of the carpenters in on a weekend, and so we get to benefit from the fact that we are in the industry. But at the same time, like I feel like my house, always is the last one on the priority list when it comes to what I'm working on. But yes, we do a lot of the work ourselves.
Do you like it, or do you find it just a means to an end?
I mean, I love getting to actually do it, but it's a challenge trying to find the time.
Yeah.
So it's always an unfinished project. It gets started and then it lingers and lingers. So there's always the downside.
I looked up the median home price in Sonoma County, which was just a few tens of thousands short of $1 million. How do folks in the trades afford to live where you do?
It's really, really hard. A lot of times they live out in the outskirts in
Hours
an
away, right?
adjacent county.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, probably an hour. Definitely a lot of them live up in Lake County, which is one county north. it happens. It's unfortunate. I wish that we had especially since we are in the industry, it seems unfortunate that we don't have any way to create some sort of affordable housing stock so that we can keep the labor pool here locally in Sonoma County. But with that influx of people coming from San Francisco and from Silicon Valley, it just continues to get harder and harder, and it pushes the needle even further out of reach for everybody that works in the trades. It's really unfortunate.
Do you hear from your trade partners that folks are moving into their more affordable areas too? I'm betting they are, because if you could sell your house in the Bay Area and buy so much more further out because you can work from anywhere, I'm sure that's got to affect their ability to buy a home. Yeah,
absolutely. A lot of people too have left this area completely and moved out of state because just of the cost of living here is such a challenge.
You're talking trade people, tradespeople. Just they are like, I can live somewhere more affordably. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. And we try to keep all of our wages as competitive as possible, but it's still, I mean, it takes a lot to be able to support a family here in Sonoma County. So it's a never-ending challenge for us.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Morgan. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything you'd like to tell or ask our audience before we go?
I don't think so. It's been fun. I was so excited that you asked me to be on here, and I love getting to have the conversation and be a female voice. A little bit of a different perspective is exciting for me. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was really nice.
It was a pleasure talking to you. In all sincerity, do you want to give listeners your company's website so they can check it out?
Yeah, check us out. It's leffdesignbuild.com. And if you're ever looking for a builder in Sonoma County, we'd love to talk to you.
That was fantastic. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Morgan for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Thanks very much for listening.